All right, here's where we left off. We'll go to the next slide now. All right, we've mentioned this, but I just wanted to make sure that this is in your notes. So the House has limited debates. The Senate has this tradition of unlimited debates, which has led the Senate to what's called a filibuster, or an attempt to talk a bill to death. There are limits to that filibuster. They have occurred because of times when senators have tried to talk a bill to death, and the Senate has realized that, you know what, this has got to stop. This is an important piece of legislation, and so they've tried to do something about that. All right, so this tradition of unlimited debate has been limited because of the idea of individuals to just keep talking a bill to death. It's become known as a motion for cloture. And so what happens is when there's a call for a motion for cloture, if 60 senators or more vote to end debate, then debate is ended in the Senate. This is a pretty high hurdle to overcome. It used to be before they passed this vote, it had to be 66 senators, but a number of years back they reduced it even to 60. And so the idea here is there is a little bit of a limit to debate in the Senate, but there's got to be a vast majority of senators who want to vote to end debate. So if one political party in the Senate can get a majority of 60 senators in the electoral process, that is a filibuster-proof majority. Now, sometimes what will happen, so moving on to a similar topic but different, sometimes what will happen when a bill gets bottled up in committee, say for instance that in one of these committees subcommittees, a bill falls into the hands of a committee chair that is just not favorable to it, and so they just bury the bill. They don't hold the hearings, they don't do anything, they just let the bill die in the dust, so to speak. And so what happens in that case, if there is a majority of members of the House of Representatives who want to bring that bill to the floor for a debate, they can do what's known as a motion to discharge. And that is, if 218 or more votes to bring this bill out of committee, then it goes to the entire House. Now, why 218? 218 of 435 is a majority. So this is a good idea. If the members of the House of Representatives, if a majority of them want to bring a bill to the floor, just because it's been bottled up in some committee, they can do that for a motion of cloture. That same idea can happen, that same idea can happen in the Senate with a motion or a move to discharge petition. So 51 or more vote to bring the bill out of committee, then it goes to the full Senate, is what that says right there on the bottom. All right, some leftovers in passing laws. Bills that are not passed in the life of one session of Congress are dead. Meaning, you can't, after, like for instance, we're having an election in 2020. The new Congress will take office in January 21. It will be in for 2 years. If a bill is not passed in that time, it's dead. It's got to start over from the very beginning, including introduction into the House. So that's a big deal. So a lot of bills come to the president's desk in the last week or so of particularly the last month of congressional term, because Congress knows if there's some bill they're working on and they don't get it passed, they've got to start over from the very beginning in the next Congress. Also, bills to raise revenue must begin in the House of Representatives. If you recall our second lecture, this really has to do with the compromise that the House would be based on population and the Senate would be based on state equality. Since bills to raise revenue really are by per capita per person, this means that the larger states are going to pay more because they have more people, and so that was part of the compromise, that bills to raise revenue must begin in the House of Representatives, so they have a better way to shape them, since large states' peoples are going to be paying more for this than are the smaller states. We've already read this, but we're going to read it again one more time because we're going to go on and show you some of the more important committees in Congress. So Woodrow Wilson, again, he said, Congress in session is Congress on display. Congress in committee is Congress at work. So what are some of the important committees of Congress? Some of the most important committees of Congress are authorizing committees. They tell the bureaucracy, Social Security, Border Patrol, welfare, Medicare, any bureaucracy, they tell the bureaucracy what to do. They are also responsible for congressional oversight of the bureaucracy. So in 1961, congressional oversight was about 8% of committee hearings. 20 years later, 25% of committee hearings are congressional oversight. I don't have statistics on today, but it's been hovering around this 25%. I would imagine more recently it's bumped up just a little bit. Maybe it's as high as 30%. Congress has already passed so many laws. Now so they pass these laws, they create these bureaucracies. How then do they control them? They control them or attempt to control them through their oversight. Now, usually when they pass these laws, their bureaucracy is under the prerogative of the president. It's his job to control it. But this is one of those instances where there's overlapping power. Since Congress created it, they reserve the right to look into it and to see what's going on, to see if the bureaucracies are acting in accordance with the wishes of Congress when they created the law. So these authorizing committees and this congressional oversight is a big deal, cannot be understated or overstated, cannot be overstated. Appropriations Committee in the House and Finance Committees in the Senate. So whether if it's Appropriation Committee, it's in the House. If it's Finance Committee, it's in the Senate. And important committees, they decide how much money the government will spend. They can undo or even limit the decisions of authorizing committees. For instance, I want to say it was George Bush II. He authorized, he got through Congress money to build the Great Wall, the American Wall between Mexico and the United States. And Congress actually authorized $60 billion to do it. However, the money was never fully appropriated. That's why there's some sections where there's walls and some sections where there are not. It's mostly where there are not. So these appropriation or finance committees, it's not enough just to have a bill passed. If the money isn't being authorized to be spent, nothing happens. So these appropriations and finance committees are very powerful committees. House Rules Committee is an extremely powerful committee in the House. Extremely powerful. It establishes the rules under which the House operates. It assigns the number of staff a congressperson receives, that budget that we talked about earlier on. It determines what, so if you've just fallen out of favor, they're going to axe you down with that budget. It determines what rules a bill will be debated under and the length of the debate, and therefore the chance of its being passed. If they don't like a bill that's somehow gotten to the full House floor, they'll have it debated under a rule that would kind of kill it. So if they have it debated on a closed rule, nobody can add any amendments to it, it'll likely kill it in the House. They also schedule legislation for voting. So a very, very powerful committee, the House Rules Committee. And finally, the House Ways and Means Committee is arguably, it should say, the most powerful committee in the House of Representatives. All bills to raise revenue begin here. For instance, should we have a national sales tax? How much should income tax be? What should be the national tax on gasoline? Or a myriad number of other taxes. They begin in the House Ways and Means Committee. The way or the means by which we will pay for things. All bills, we talked about that. They determine how the revenue will be raised. This idea about a national sales tax, tax on alcohol. How is it that we're going to make? How is it that we'll choose to fund these programs? And finally, and this is a big one, you can really see how powerful this is. Even if they just had this last bullet here, they make the basic decisions for Social Security and Medicare programs. The House Ways and Means Committee. If you're a member of Congress, particularly from a state where you have a larger demographic of older citizens, you'd want to get on this House Ways and Means Committee so you can pass those policies that will be good for the elderly. So depending on which committee you get on is going to increase your chances for success as a member of the House or member of Senate. If you're from a agrarian state, a lot of agriculture in Nebraska, you better be on the Agricultural Committee so you can make influence those decisions that will be made respecting agriculture. That is Congress. Hope this has been helpful, and that's it. Over and out.